Hi Nat, Happy New Year.
Hello, happy new year to you too.
So
2025.
I know 2025. In 2024, Nat and I would be on the phone like probably daily, and we kept saying like we need to turn these conversations into podcast episodes. Because I don't know, we each other's like support person last year through what was the journey of 2024.
I know it was definitely an interesting year. I think it's probably one of the most challenging,
Yeah, for sure.
which I think is across the board. Most people I've heard or spoken to have said the same. Um, Definitely glad to see the end of it and welcoming in. I think 2025 does feel really fresh and exciting, which I wasn't sure which way it was going to go, but I think it's going to be a great year.
Yeah, I think so. Probably because like of everything that we kind of waded through, right, in 2024. What were your like looking back, I think because I speak to you so often, the I don't maybe we don't get the zoom out of each other, but like what did you think? What were your biggest kind of takeaways, lessons of 20?
From 2024.
Yeah.
Um, I think for me, it was just really coming back and just really strengthening that sense of self.
Yeah.
And, looking, I guess, focusing on the expansion and the growth you wanted to, but if there were roadblocks and challenges along the way, you can get really frustrated and annoyed and thinking, what's going on? Am I not on the right path? What's happening? And I think because we've had COVID and it's been, let's just say the last 4 years, feels like it's been like that. And I think at the start of 2024, it was like, okay, great. This is a year we've gone through it all. And then, there's still the cost of living crisis and all the other things that were happening through the year. And I know a lot of people still saying that they were still coming out of the exhaustion and burnout from that particular period. Uh, and I think a lot of things were changing and people were adapting,
Mm.
and it maybe wasn't as clear as to where things were heading. And so it was just trying to, I guess, wade through that and figure out what it was that you wanted to do. So I guess me, it was getting clearer on my path and just continually doing that inner work because I know that that's what's going to help that growth that I'm wanting in the expansion. So kind of bringing it back into that.
Yeah, and it's frustrating like when you're doing the inner work, yet you're not seeing the desired results on the outside. And I think, like, for me, I kept having to remind myself that I'm not doing the inner work for a particular outcome. And I think
Yeah.
sometimes, when we do it for a particular outcome, it's like, I reckon you're always going to be probably disappointed. Because when you're being triggered, when stuff's challenging, like I know for you last year, like that idea of purpose kept coming up a lot. Like, and it's and for me it was just like the frustration of like zero flow. And so like when things are coming up and they trigger you, it's just like heal that, not because you want the flow or you want the purpose or the direction or whatever, but just heal it because it's coming up to be healed.
Yeah, it's part of it. And I think, yeah, part of the reflection process I was doing with others, and it was interesting because I was like, oh, I don't really have externally, a lot hasn't changed in my
Mm.
life. There's been and there were a lot of big things that did happen that I worked through. And so for me, it was like externally, it's not very different, but internally, there's been a huge change. And I think we sort of miss that when we do our reflections because we're so tuned to look outside and see what looks different on the outside, but not to go within and go, well, how much have I grown within? Like, what did I actually overcome? What did I move through? How am I a different person? Because we're always different from, hopefully, from the start of the year to the end of the year. What am I really proud of that I've been able to work through? Because just because it doesn't look different externally doesn't mean it still hasn't been a really successful year for you. And that's what's going to give you the building blocks to go into a new year. But I think we dismiss that, or we don't even look at it, is probably the thing, because we're just so focused on external achievements or what our life might look like.
Yeah, and the like the things that we want to have, but it's not about what we want to have. It's about like obviously like who we're becoming and who we're being. And
Mm.
I mean, like I've mentioned this quite a bit on socials and on the first episode back of this podcast. It's because this year isn't like numerology wise or energetically a 9 year, it's still going to be a lot of endings and a lot of beginnings.
Yeah.
So, like, I'm excited too about this year, but I'm also I think I'm more mature in my excitement, maybe.
Yeah, I get that. I know I was a little bit worried because I was thinking when everyone's like it's the year 9 year, which people talk to it as the endings. And I know I'd heard you say, but no, it's also beginnings. And like, thank God, because I'm pretty sure we had a lot of endings in 2024. I don't need any more. Like I'm ready for fresh new start, new beginnings. Um, so yeah, so that was it. I was happy to go with the new beginnings as opposed to the ending side. Um, but yeah, it's interesting.
Yeah, like I think most of us are happy to leave 2024 when where it was, but not without that acknowledgement of okay, like okay, I really learned about grit. I really learned about resilience. I really learned about staying the course, when things don't necessarily go perfectly. And of course, there's always time to flip and change and do all those things. But sometimes it's about like the thing that kept in my mind the whole last year is like the last mile is never crowded, Kirsten. Like the last mile is never crowded. And if it feels right to keep doing what you're doing, just keep running, or whatever that means. Like just keep going because most people will quit. Most people will be forced to quit. Most people will pivot in a way that actually isn't appropriate. It's a knee-jerk reaction. And oh my God, like you and I have like watched that happen to a lot of people around us in our lives. And it's like, yeah, like the quick decision to flip because it wasn't working or and not sitting with the ick or not sitting with the endurance it takes sometimes to build and to be persistent because it's not you can be doing all the right things and it's not all going to go your way. So what do you do in those moments where it's not going your way?
Yeah, and it's definitely not fun. Like you don't want to be in that
Yeah.
place. Like it's it's much fun on the other side, but you can only get to the other side if you sit in that place and you go through and you work through it. And yeah, I think like we were talking about, like a lot of people just don't do that because they don't want to feel it. And I think and for years I didn't either. And
Mm.
for me, it got to a point where with my health, I got to the point where I was like, I just need to change. Like something's got to happen here. Like I'm finally going to listen to my body with all the signals it was telling me uh, to go and do something to reevaluate and do things differently. But, I wish I'd listened to the signals so I could have dealt and felt and done all the inner work before we get there. But for me, and I know a lot of people, it takes something happening for you to go, okay, I'm going to go within. And when you do that, you realize it's the only way to get to where you actually want to go and come back into that life of alignment. Because we only really go through that when we're out of alignment with our true selves to get us back onto that path that we need to be on.
And just so you know, we go out of alignment like on a daily basis. So like it just happens all the time. So many phone calls, it's like 9 in the morning. I'm already calling that. So this happened. And now I think this. Yeah, and you'd be like the voice of reason. Well, you're assuming a lot of things here in this situation.
But I think it's the more you do the work, the more you're aware of
Yeah.
what you're doing. Whereas other times you would go down a rabbit hole and it would take you into a place that you don't need to go in for a day, 2 weeks, a month. And then you're wondering why and life's feeling crap and things aren't going the way. Whereas I think the more you do the work, the more you become aware because yeah, things are going to come up. And it's got, I guess, kind of that test. How are you going to react to this situation? What version are you going to bring to the table? And there'll be times where you'll do things differently, and there'll be times where you'll fall back into your old habits. And it's just having that awareness and going, okay, I know what I'm doing here. Or you're talking to a friend and they can help you see okay, you going this right? Is this where your highest version's taking you, or are you falling back into that old way? But it's I always hoped once I'd done the initial work, that was it. Like I was done.
What do you mean you
No
used
more.
to hope that? Excuse me.
I
Don't
know.
don't lie. Don't lie on the podcast.
Finished.
How
I'm
many
done.
times have you asked me? Hey, yes, exactly. When am I like I'm done? How often do I get those texts from you? I'm done.
Yeah, I can't. And then it's like, okay, no, well, still got room to go. Still got growth. But the great thing is that when you do realize it, it's also exciting because you're expanding.
Yeah, totally. And I think it's just also like that whole human thing that we're taught that we just like I said before, we assume if we do all the right things, tick all
Yeah.
the right boxes, that therefore we'll get that result. But it's like it just life doesn't work that way. Like I kind of feel like sometimes saying to myself, grow up.
Well, I think it can work that way. Like I've had a lot of success early on doing it that way. And I think, high achievers, you are really great at ticking the box. You're great at working at achieving, having success. But at the end of the day, achievement's not your problem, it's the alignment. So it kind of depends, I guess. And some people are happy to continue that way, not feeling truly fulfilled. And I don't know if there has to be an event that stops you to,
But like, what if achievement's like what you want? Like, I want to be in a relationship with that person. I want that job. I want this certain amount of money.
yeah. And I think that's fine, but is that what you really want?
Yeah. I
Like
want
it's making sure
a
that it's in
million dollars.
alignment.
No, like, do you know what I mean? Like, people will say, yeah, that is exactly what I want.
Yeah, but then I think, and that's amazing if that's what they truly do want, but it depends on, like, you have to be crystal clear and you've got to do the work and make sure that it is, because a lot of people don't question why they want things or why they do things. You just do it because that's what you've done your whole life. But how did you get that? And that's come from whether it was parents or other guardians or family members. And that's based on their truths, and their truths have come from their parents or their teachers or society. And it's like, you've got to decide, is this my truth? Because, that's why people will get divorced, or people will be in a career that they've done for so long and they hate. They might have a lot of success and achievement as a result of it, but are they truly happy? And if they are, amazing, because you've got achievement and alignment. But I think there's a lot of people out there who have a lot of achievement, have a lot of success, but are missing that alignment piece and they're not feeling truly fulfilled. Like for me, it was like no matter what I achieved or how many goals I reached, I always felt like something was missing. Like thought I'll feel this way, or the partner will come in, or whatever that I was wanting to come in would happen when I reached a certain level of my life. But it didn't until I realized, okay, you can achieve, that's not your problem, but the alignment's not there, because what I was wanting, or even how I was showing up, the person I was showing up as, was out of alignment with my true self.
Yeah. And I think like we're going to be as transparent with you as possible. Like, there are things in our lives that we want. Like there are
Mhm.
things in like this year that both of us individually want to achieve and want to experience and want to align with. So like we're in this with you. Like there's no like magical formula, but there is depth to the approach that like obviously that we offer in terms of our work, but we're walking that depth as well. And that can be difficult to face and look at the things that seem to elude you. And it's like, I've always wanted this and it's just not coming in. Like, and you kind of can really quickly, because of the achievement piece, get into that mindset of like, what else do I need to do? What else do I need to change, you know? And like, yeah, I think that's a really valid and good question that you should always be asking. But also at the same time, it's like all those deeper questions like, well, why do you want it? And is this the right thing for you? And are you letting go of it? And are you trying to rush it? And you don't actually have control over that. So what are you doing wasting your energy there and just building up this vibration of like pushing it away and keeping it at bay because of the frustration and the annoyance that you're creating around it, you know?
Mm. Yeah. And it's just continually showing up and doing the work. And detachment's a huge thing, and that's not easy. There's always, yeah, I think it's just continually showing up as yourself and showing up. Like I talk about being your wealthiest self. So each day, what are you doing to show up as that version of you?
Did
And
2020 change your version of wealthiest self or your definition of it for you personally?
sorry,
Did 2024 shift your definition of what your
my
wealthy
wealthy.
self is, like personally?
I don't think it shifted. I think it made me realize things that I wasn't fully committing to doing. That was not that my wealthiest self would have been doing.
Like what?
Um, I think in certain areas I was holding myself back. Um, maybe not being as consistent with certain well-being practices that I know I need to do. Um, like I have my base of what I do. And so there were things that I wanted to start doing additional of, but there were things that were also going happening in my life externally that I didn't have a lot of control over. So I think, it comes down to you can have the best intentions and of doing it, but it's about you've still got life to live. So it's still being realistic as to what is going on. So there were some things, I guess, that I pulled back, but I always have a baseline of what I need to do in order to ensure that I'm able to show up as my best self. But I think there was probably things that I'm going to do or hoping to do more so this year that I didn't do last year.
She's not going to give us any specifics.
I
Not gonna, she's so boring.
don't really give a
Why,
credit.
why are you being like super shy all of a sudden? Guys, if you're listening to this, Nat's really afraid that you're going to judge her. No, just kidding. Like, I think my version of wealth has changed for sure
How?
because I related wealth directly to money and I related wealth directly to the security and the safety I found in that. And 2024 said, well, you have to find your safety and security somewhere else because like business was tough, so tough last year, and everyone has felt it in every area of their life. And so, it stripped it back when I couldn't find that safety and security in wealth in terms of money. So I have to find it elsewhere. And then also revising on how much, when it is related to money, on how much money is actually that there's the amount that you might want, but there's also the amount that you need, and they're two totally different things. And like really, like I think not that I was not that I'm completely spendthrift, but I think that I learned that wealth is actually like there is so much wealth that I
Mm,
have a roof over my head. I can pay my bills. I might not be able to fly to Europe for the summer this year or next year because there is like a stunt in everyone's cash flow at the moment. But true wealth is like that I'm still like living the lifestyle that I was living. I'm still able to afford the health practices like my gym and the stuff that's important to me to maintain my sense of self. Slow mornings became really important to me the more work I did on my nervous system last year. And that to me is pure wealth that
yeah.
I get to slow down to begin my day, which I've never ever had for like 20 years. And it's just fried me.
Mm,
And so my definition of wealth has definitely changed. And as a result, I think the way in which I'm approaching my work this year is different because
mm,
it's so easy to slip into survival mode when the flow of cash isn't what you're used to. Because obviously, like we're speaking because we work for ourselves, but people that even have a wage, their money didn't go as far last year. So everyone kind of had to like look at that and then adjust as a result of that. But like this year, when I think about business, I actually have like, it's not yeah, humbled, maybe is the word. I don't know. But realize like it's more back into focusing on actually what's important. And even though like purpose and values are obviously really important to me, you can forget that when you're trying to survive or when you're thriving and everything's blooming and you're just like go, 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 go. Like sometimes that you want to keep it going and sometimes you can forget. So this year,
Mm.
like I just want to love my work again. Like I
Yeah.
just want to love it. Which
Yeah.
I do, but I want to proactively and out loud love it again and only talk about the stuff I want to talk about and only put content out there because I just feel like saying it or because it feels important to me. It feels relevant to the collective, not
Yeah.
because I feel like I have to. Does that make sense?
Yeah, totally. And I think when it's like when I talk about the wealthiest self, it's more about the behaviors and it's more about the actions you're doing, not like obviously because you've got your wealth, like I talk about wealthiest life, and that's like getting clear, well, what does the dream life look like and how much is that going to cost and what do we need to do now in order to start moving towards it? But for your wealthiest self, it's getting really clear, like who do I want to become? How do I want to show up? How does my dream day look like? Like for you, it's a slow morning, and that's priceless. And that sets you up in so many different ways as well. But there's so many things we can do to show up as our wealthy self that don't necessarily cost us money.
Mm.
It's just making sure that you are doing what feels really good to you and that fills you up. Like from a well-being perspective, like I go to Pilates, I make sure I work out, I get regular acupuncture, osteo, really careful with nutrition and meditation, journaling. I mean, that's one thing that I'm 2025 is getting back on the bandwagon. That was one thing that did
Are you
slip.
actually going to listen to your moon meditations now? Are you actually?
I do that. I
Yeah, I was
do
going to
that.
say you are pretty good with that. You're good with
I
your.
do meditate. I do make that. Journaling's probably the thing.
Mm.
But what I found is I think I probably did it more in a walking. I'd go for walks
Yeah,
and not,
yeah,
and that was sort of how I went through it rather than writing. So I was just doing it a different way. So, but again, it comes back, find what works for you. Like I think it's about
yeah.
exploring and experimenting because everyone's going to have a different definition of what your wealthiest self and wealthiest life looks and feels like. And it has to be this way. And for me, it's about, and that was one of the biggest things I did when I started through recovering through burnout was getting really clear on building that self-trust as to, what do I want to do? What feels really good for me? Because you listen to a lot of things that people tell you to do, but they don't know your body. You know your body better than anybody else. But and for me, I was very much my masculine energy in corporate. And so I
Mm.
was just associating from that feminine energy, which is, it's where our inner wisdom, it's our intuition, creativity. And so coming back and strengthening that self-trust just resulted in, well, what do I want to do? To the point of what do I want to eat today? How do I want to move my body? Who do I feel good around? Like, who do I want to be around? What activities give me energy? What don't? And so the more you do this sort of exploration work, you get a lot clearer on what your wealthiest self needs in their life in order to be able to show up as their best self. Because we know when we're showing up as our best self and we're acting in alignment, we're attracting all the great things into our life as well.
Yeah, I think people think like the money perhaps is the indication of the achievement or the wealth or the happiness or whatever. But like I find, like, I don't know if you find this with clients, but like whenever I have earned money in a way that isn't in alignment, like the money never lasts. And that's the energy of it because it never it just never goes as far. I remember saying when I first started the business, it's like it's so weird. I'm kind of earning less than I used to earn in teaching at this point in time, but I've got so much more money. It's so weird. And like I literally did not know how that was happening. Like I knew energetically, but even practically, I was trying to figure it out and I could not make heads or tails of it, like in terms of like sums. Because I'm like, what is going on? But energetically I understood it.
I think when you're in alignment and you're acting, living your purpose, you're showing up as your best self, that's where that self-love comes in. And when you love yourself, you've got your self-worth, but you respect yourself. And when you respect yourself, you have respect for your money, the time and energy you're putting into attracting that money into your life. So I think the way you then show up around your money is very different. And you're most likely going to want to nurture your money and help your money grow and use it in a way that's going to allow you to continue living the life you want. Whereas when we're out of alignment, we're making, can be making a lot of money. People can still do things like if you have a certain systems and structures set up, it can. But I find that a lot of people will, that's when you overspend, you live outside your means because you're trying to keep up with the Joneses, or you are tired and you're exhausted, so you deserve to treat yourself. So you go buy something when really you just needed a good nap.
Yeah.
And so I think when you're in alignment, you just show up very differently around everything else. And it's just that self-love, worth, and respect then vibrates out to your money and how you treat it.
Can we talk about the word mentoring? Because that, why are you laughing at me? Do you not want to talk about that word? The
No.
M word. Um, because it's a lot of my work these days. Like the vast majority of my work is going to mentoring. It's your work. And I don't think people misunderstand it, but I think it's perhaps, I don't know, this is just me thinking out loud. You can totally disagree, but maybe it's being misrepresented. So I'm just, you know what, I'm just going to come out and say it. She's so nervous.
Where is this going?
What's she going to say? Can you tell like we just do not plan our chats? Um, but that rise of like the COVID, I'm now a health coach. I am now a expert in, I don't know, whatever it is, a life coach. And I'm gonna like show you how to live this amazing life I've created. I just want people to hear that that is BS because everyone's just human, right? Everyone's just doing their thing. And we're all evolving at our own rate and pace, which is why I like the word mentoring because it's like, oh, I'm there with you. I'm there with you. Trust me, I've got a lot and like you could say the same thing. I've got a lot of research. I've got a lot of skills. I've got a lot of experience in everything I can hold you in. But the idea that it is an individual curriculum and a mentor is the person that's really going to be honest with you and hold your hand and direct your attention towards what needs your attention, as opposed to someone that's coming along and being like, I'm going to solve all your problems. Let's go.
Hmm.
Thoughts? She's like, I don't want to answer this.
Where do I go? Uh, yeah, it isn't interesting. Like, obviously, I work with money, and so I'm an accountant. I was a CPA, so I've got the qualifications, which I think is really important, especially when you're helping people manage their
Yeah.
money, budgeting, cash flow. I think that's a necessity. When it comes to mentoring, and I'm a wellbeing certified holistic wellbeing coach, I think it's like everyone has their own journey. And like you said, everyone's going through their own things. And what I found through my own journey is that there's no such thing as a cookie cutter system,
Yeah.
which a lot of people can use. And it's like, this is my journey. This is how I got from A to B. These are the steps I did. Here you go, you do it.
Yeah.
That's not going to work because my journey is different to your journey. The things that are going on within me are different to you.
Yeah.
So I think you've got to be really careful when, working with people that you make it about them and you've got to find and allow them. And I think the biggest thing is holding space for people to unravel the
Mm.
onion, like pulling the layers back and them figuring it out themselves. And you're holding space and you are guiding them and you're supporting them. And there's certain questions you'll ask and I've got certain playbooks that I can give my clients to help them with pulling back those layers to get back to that true self of who they are. And, obviously, and then obviously the way that I've gone through and there's particular parts that I find, I talk about profit, purpose, and well-being. Like we've got to focus on the money. We need to focus on the well-being so that you're showing up as your best self and you're looking after yourself. And then purpose is creating that alignment. So they're those things, but how you go about figuring that out with yourself and your journey and your path, that's the work we do, but you're leading, I guess, in that sense of it's your path to experiment, to have fun. Some of it's fun, some of it's not, to uncover and to figure it out for yourself. But I think it's just being, yeah, for people to say, like, I can get you here to here, this is how you do it, follow these steps. Um,
Be
yeah,
mindful. Be
be
mindful.
mindful. Yeah,
And like that's literally like how we teach kids. We provide them with the materials. We provide them with the correct or most effective thought-provoking questions.
yeah,
And when they discover it themselves, like when a 5-year-old discovers that you can't subtract like four, take away seven, and when it clicks to them that they get that because, oh my gosh, there's not enough to take away, they'll never forget it.
mm,
Ever because they got it themselves. But I had to provide them with a question. Well, what's four takeaway seven? Let's figure it out. I had to provide them with the counting materials, the writing materials, and the process of how to do that, how to do a takeaway sum with
yeah,
materials for them to then discover that.
yeah.
And if you figure it out yourself with that support and the right tools, like you'll never forget it. I think we'll see a shift. I do think we'll see a shift in like that field of self-help, whether it's around, how we look at our money, whether it's around our healing and expansion and alignment practices that it's like here's like so many tools and I'm going to hold space here. I'm going to ask the right questions and then the light bulb moments that you can have are going to be mind blowing. And that's like, has always
That's
been
the
my
best
healing journey.
part.
Yeah, it's
And
so
that's
good.
the empowering part. Like I remember when I was going through my own journey, I remember like there'd be times we'd be walking around the botanical gardens and it would just come in. I was like, oh my God,
Yeah.
how did I not know this? Like
Yeah.
that makes total sense. And if someone takes that away, but again, that only happened because I went through the journey and I had the support of someone who was guiding me and holding space. And, obviously when you're going through your journey, it's a roller coaster of emotions and you're uncovering things and not everything feels comfortable. And so to have somebody there who can hold that space and can be there through the journey with you is so, so important. But someone who can knows when to hold back as well and to allow it to evolve for yourself, I think is really important, like you were saying. And it can be tricky because I know with like I work with a lot of high achievers and they like to, you tell me how to get from here to here, give me the
Mhm.
steps, I will get it done.
Yeah, yeah.
Because I was the same. But when
You
it comes
still, you're such a liar. I was the same. You're still the same sometimes. Like, understandably, like when we get frustrated, we
to
go, yeah, you do. You say that. Well, just tell me what I've got to do. And I'm
you know
like,
what to do. Like it gets me like, and it's like, and it's at that point where it's like you're there, like you're almost there.
yeah,
You just got to
yeah,
keep going. And it's easy to give someone the answers and go because you can see it.
yeah,
You can see what's holding, you can do all that, but then you're taking that gift away from them to give that to themselves because that's, I think, really empowering to do it, to have those moments where it's like, oh, I get it. Because, like you said, they then get that for life. Because we also don't want people to become codependent, to think that
no,
they can
yeah,
get results by working, like to get to where you need to go. And like we said, as much as we'd like it to be done and dusted, it's an ongoing process, it's an ongoing journey. Every time you go to that next level, you're going to have to go through a similar journey and all the things. The thing is, it gets easier because you're more aware and you can pick up things a lot quicker and you have the toolkit to be able to move through it, but you're still going to find those moments. So by having that and knowing, well, I already went through that with Nat or with you, and now I know what to do.
yeah,
So
totally.
you can get it. So I think that's really important too, is to be mindful of a codependency relationship that can happen
Yeah.
during those times.
I think listen, I think it's a good year to work on shifting wealth mindset or wealth definition and then how that translates into, what it is that we do. But like, obviously, if there's anything that you want Nat to talk about or you want Nat to offer, then reach out because I think often people like see the whole money side of things and think that that's really what you're here for, but it's so much bigger than that. Like money is like your gateway drug. And then so that people know that that's your background, but it's never about really
Never
about the
about.
money. Yeah.
Um, yeah, and I mean, I find that so exciting as well because
Mm.
it's the way to come back home to yourself. Like there's so many amazing things that happen when you decide to step into your power
Mm.
of taking responsibility for your money because it's not just from an external perspective, but the gift you give yourself is a lifetime of wealth.
Yeah, because, and do you know what I like about the conversations I have with you around like kind of like disguised as money conversations, but really they're like life conversations, is because money is also obviously very important, right? We all need money,
Hmm.
but it's also really tangible. So when I talk to you about something, I'm like, oh, I'm a bit frustrated with this, or I don't know what to do there. And you're like, asking the thought-provoking questions or holding space for that. I can then like kick a few subtle goals with the money that then I can transfer into other areas of my life.
Hmm.
And like for me, a big one is just like the confidence just to say what I want. And
Yeah.
and so we've talked a bit about that, like with money, and then that just translates into other areas. So I kind of like it as like the little thing that you can actually like work on because it's a practicality in our lives that we have to deal with it.
Yeah.
But we're learning
It's
so much more.
more of a, yeah. And I think, the biggest, obviously, as an accountant, like the money side, the practical side, that's been something I've been really great at most of my life. And I, have been budgeting since I was young. I've always liked to be in control of my money. For me, it's always given me a sense of
I
confidence.
honestly do not know how we are friends. But anyway, keep going.
But I found it it gave me confidence. Okay, great. I know where I'm at. And even at times when it wasn't where I wanted to be at, I then knew, okay, I've got to take this action. Like I had a plan. But what I realized is through my journey is that you or your relationship with self such plays such a pivotal part in your relationship with money and then how you show up. Because as women, we're not groomed by society to be successful, to be wealthy. I was very fortunate, I had really supportive parents, but, you've got society then also giving you all these messages that, women aren't successful or ambitious on their own, they're not wealthy. And as a result, the way that we show up in everyday life and our careers is also a way of holding ourselves back. So not speaking up, not using our voice, not going after the promotions or the jobs that we want. Like you look at men, I think there's that thing where they're 60% qualified for a job. They'll
Yeah.
go for it. Women are 90% and don't go for it.
Yeah.
Totally different percentages.
That I think that is a huge topic. Can like let's talk about that. I think that needs its own episode. So we're gonna come back to you on that one in a few weeks with the whole idea of that and like the feminine approach to money or the female approach to money and the stories around that. So 2025, the year of redefining wealth. I think for a lot of people, slate clean in terms of their actual finances. So what better time to
And it's
start?
like a closing and the new beginning.
Yeah,
Close the
let's
old
let's
chapter.
close out that
2024 and
yeah,
money.
let's and
Because I mean, it makes such a difference. Like I
yeah,
see it time and time again, and I just want everyone else to be able to experience what happens when you choose to step up and take responsibility for your money. Because, like I said, it's not just externally will your life change. Well, it will change because of internally of how much you've changed. And so, yeah,
love
that's
that.
something that I hope every woman gets to experience because when I see my clients experiencing it, I've experienced it, you're experiencing it. Like And obviously, like it takes, you don't work on it and automatically you're a millionaire
Mm.
or you're earning six. Like it is that journey, but things happen pretty quickly when you decide to step up and change the game, create the game on your terms.
Ooh, 2025. We're not game changers, we're game makers.
Yeah. And I think as women, we have to show up because
Yeah.
we do things differently and we need to do it in a way that works for us. And that requires us to break some rules as to how we've been taught we
All
should show
right.
up.
Well, look out because we are going to talk about that when we meet up again. But as always, you know where to connect with Nat and, have that person there to ask the right questions, hold the space, and to bring you back to authentic wealth. Thanks for chatting.
Thanks for having me.